Zack, Kelly, Jessie, Slater, Lisa, Screech, and of course Belding. Most people don't realize this, but those forever friends and their chummy principal powered one of the most transformative shows of its time. The ripple effect is actually kinda crazy, but what's even crazier was the show itself. Not only was it on life support and survived against the odds, it basically threw out the television rulebook, then set it on fire. Yet, it became the blueprint for dozens of shows that followed. This is the story of Saved by the Bell, one of the messiest productions in TV history that accidentally invented an entire genre. Before we start, give this video a quick like if you watched Slater do ballet back in the day, and subscribe for more retro TV deep dives. Okay, let's jump right into the chaos. It's 1987, and NBC president Brandon Tartikoff, who was on a generational winning streak after saving Cheers and basically all of NBC, well, he had an idea. A sitcom about an inspiring middle school teacher who connects with her students. A teacher-focused show with heart. And on July 11th, 1987, the pilot for Good Morning Miss Bliss aired on NBC, starring Hayley Mills, the beloved Disney actress from The Parent Trap, as Carrie Bliss, a compassionate teacher at John F. Kennedy Junior High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was a completely different cast of kids. Get a load of this alternate reality. Jaleel White, before Family Matters. Brian Austin Green, before 90210. Jonathan Brandis, before Ladybugs and Sequest. But NBC watched the pilot and rejected it. Tartikoff, that stubborn genius, didn't want to give up on the concept. He made a deal with the Disney Channel to produce 13 episodes. If they did well, Disney would order 77 more. The show was completely retooled for Disney, Hayley Mills remained, but the students were recast. This is where our familiar faces finally arrive. For the Disney series, they cast Mark Paul Gosselaar as Zack Morris, Dustin Diamond as Screech Powers, and Lark Voorhees as Lisa Turtle. Dennis Haskins was brought in to play the principal, Mr. Belding. Good Morning Miss Bliss premiered on Disney Channel on December 7th, 1988. It was the first program ever produced by a major television network specifically for cable TV. And it flopped. The show suffered from a fundamental problem. It didn't know its audience. Kids didn't want to watch a show about a middle-aged teacher for 22 minutes. Adults who grew up watching Hayley Mills weren't thinking about the Disney Channel. The show focused too much on Miss Bliss and not enough on the students, who were actually the most interesting part. By the time the 13th episode aired on March 18th, 1989, Disney had already decided not to order more. The show was dead. But Tartikoff, that ratings oracle, he still believed there was something worth saving. He thought the elements featuring the kids had been well received. NBC had been losing the high end of their animated audience, kids from 10 to 12, so Tartikoff had a radical idea. Create a live-action comedy to air on Saturday mornings. This was a completely new concept at the time. Saturday mornings were for cartoons. Everybody knew that. Tartikoff called in producer Peter Engel and told him to retool the show. Drop Miss Bliss entirely, focus on the teenagers, move it to California, make it fun. Engel was skeptical. As he later wrote in his memoir, the idea of making shows for Saturday mornings and for kids instead of adults felt like someone was sending me to work in the basement or Siberia. But as it happens a lot in life, he was convinced by his wife to do it. The transformation was dramatic. Miss Bliss was gone, and Zack, Screech, Lisa, and Belding basically teleported from Indiana to Bayside High School in Pacific Palisades, California, and left their friends Mikey and Nikki behind. There was no explanation for any of this, we just kind of accepted the new reality, which would become a trend with this show. The new cast was assembled through auditions. For the role of Kelly Kapowski, the all-American girl and Zack's love interest, producers narrowed it down to 3 actresses, Tiffany Amber Thiessen, Elizabeth Berkley, and Jenny Garth. Engel fought hard for Thiessen, believing she had the perfect girl next door appeal. Berkley, as the stronger actress, was instead given a new character created specifically for her, Jessie Spano. Jenny Garth didn't get the role, but she did okay on Beverly Hills 90210. For the jock role of AC Slater, they cast Mario Lopez, who initially didn't even want the part. In his autobiography, he admitted that he was more interested in chasing girls than trekking up to LA to read for a part that had barely been sketched out on paper. There was one final casting decision. They needed someone to play Max, the owner of the gang's hangout, the Max. They hired real-life magician Ed Alonzo, who would frequently perform magic tricks on the show. Now, because there was no more Miss Bliss, the show needed a new name. In a meeting with Engel and Tartikoff, senior producer Tom Tenowich suggested Saved by the Bell. Tartikoff loved it, Engel hated it, but nobody's arguing with Tartikoff at this point in his career, so the name stuck. NBC gave them a 7-episode commitment. According to Engel, they were basically expecting it to fail. Filming commenced. The first episode to air, Dancing to the Max, featured guest star Casey Kasem, a genuine celebrity, emceeing the dance contest. Now, how did a Saturday morning show with no bankable stars get Casey Kasem? Peter Engel's head writer, Tom Tenowich, was friends with Kasem. They asked, he said yes. It's all about who you know, just ask Tori Spelling. Anyway, on August 20th, 1989, Saved by the Bell premiered, not on Saturday morning, but in prime time on Sunday night. It was a strategic move to attract an initial audience. The studio audience went wild. The next morning at 7 a.m., Engel's phone rang. It was Tartikoff. "You're a success," Tartikoff told him. "You beat Family Ties." The premiere episode had beaten a rerun of Family Ties, one of NBC's top performing shows, in the ratings. Engel fought for more episodes. NBC ordered 13 more. The show became a hit and moved to Saturday mornings. Saved by the Bell found its groove quickly. The formula was simple but effective. Light-hearted comedy with the occasional very special episode tackling serious issues. I mean, who can forget Jessie's infamous caffeine pill episode? And does anyone remember There's No Hope with Dope? The show was designed to be colorful and fast-paced, mimicking the cartoons it competed against. Zack's ability to say timeout, freeze time, and speak directly to the camera, a trick clearly inspired by Ferris Bueller's Day Off, gave it a unique, almost surreal quality that kids loved. While other shows had tried to capture the Ferris Bueller energy, Saved by the Bell was the only one that actually made it work. NBC sold the show into syndication, and here's where things get even stranger. They included the 13 Good Morning Miss Bliss episodes in the syndication package. They edited them to include the Saved by the Bell opening theme song and added a cold open with Zack Morris, reminiscing about their days in junior high, to try and explain why the same characters were suddenly in a completely different state at a different school. But really, kids didn't care. I mean, I know I didn't when I was watching it. The show's success was undeniable. It became a cultural phenomenon. Merchandise flooded stores, books, posters, clothing. The cast went on tours around the country to meet fans and sign autographs. And then something remarkable happened. NBC looked at Saved by the Bell's success and had an epiphany. They could abandon cartoons entirely and create an entire block of teen-oriented live-action sitcoms. On September 12, 1992, NBC launched Teen NBC, a Saturday morning programming block built entirely on the Saved by the Bell formula. Peter Engel, without needing his wife's encouragement this time, became the architect of the new block, producing show after show. California Dreams, about teenagers in a band, Hang Time, about a high school basketball team, and City Guys, about teens in New York City. All of them followed the same format: ensemble casts of diverse teenagers, school setting, lighthearted comedy with occasional serious issues. And honestly, now that I'm writing this, the Hang Time basketball scenes in the tiny gym still make me laugh. Anyway, Saved by the Bell had accidentally invented a genre. It proved that live-action teen sitcoms could thrive in a time slot historically reserved for cartoons. It created a blueprint that would be copied for over a decade. Everything seemed perfect, but behind the scenes, things were about to get very, very messy. By 1992, Saved by the Bell had filmed what was supposed to be its final season, 13 episodes culminating in Graduation, where the gang would finally leave Bayside High. The graduation episode was shot, the cast members' contracts expired, everyone said their goodbyes, and then NBC did something insane. They ordered 11 more episodes. There was just one problem. Tiffany Amber Thiessen and Elizabeth Berkley didn't want to sign on for an extension. They were ready to move on. The rest of the cast, Gosler, Lopez, Diamond, Voorhees, and Haskins, signed new contracts for the additional episodes. But that left only one female cast member, Lart Voorhees, as Lisa Turtle. Producers knew they couldn't leave Lisa as the only girl on the show. They needed another female character, and they needed it quick. After a brief round of auditions, they cast Leanna Creel to play Tori Scott, the new girl at Bayside. Tori was a leather jacket-wearing, motorcycle-riding tomboy who would serve as both a love interest for Zack Morris and initially clash with him. Tori was introduced in the 4th episode of the final season, titled The New Girl. She appeared in a total of 10 episodes. Now here's where the chaos begins. The producers had already filmed the graduation episode with Kelly and Jessie present. They had filmed 13 episodes of the final season with Kelly and Jessie. Now they were filming 10 new episodes with Tori instead of Kelly and Jessie. The solution? They decided to air the Tori episodes and the Kelly-Jessie episodes in alternating order throughout the season. They thought viewers wouldn't notice the difference. Well, they were wrong. During the Tori episodes, there was never any explanation for why Kelly and Jessie were absent. During the Kelly and Jessie episodes, there was never any mention of Tori. The characters would literally disappear and reappear with no acknowledgement whatsoever. Zack would be dating Tori in one episode, then back to pining for Kelly in the next episode, with no mention of his relationship with Tori. The show treated these as if they were happening in parallel universes. When the show aired in the UK, they tried broadcasting the episodes in production order. All the Tori episodes together, then all the Kelly-Jessie episodes. This was somehow even more confusing because it meant the graduation episode, a Kelly and Jessie episode, aired before several Tori episodes. So Zack, Slater, Screech, and Lisa graduated from Bayside and then continued attending Bayside for several more episodes with no explanation. Tori appeared in her 10th and final episode, School Song, where she joined the seniors in writing a new school anthem. Then she simply vanished. She wasn't at graduation, she was never mentioned again, no one said goodbye to her, she just ceased to exist. The Tori Paradox became one of television's most notorious continuity disasters. Fans created elaborate theories to explain it. Some thought Tori was a hallucination. Others joked that she'd done something terrible to Jessie and Kelly. None of it made sense, and the show never tried to explain it. Now, when Saved by the Bell was rebooted in 2020 on Peacock, they included a joke about it. Zack mentions Tori, and Kelly says she doesn't remember her. A direct reference to the fact that Kelly and Tori never appeared in the same episode. The whole thing perfectly encapsulated what Saved by the Bell had always been. But speaking of continuity, ironically, its teens watching teens format continued to influence television for years to come. TNBC ran for 10 years, from 1992 to 2002, before being replaced by Discovery Kids on NBC. During that decade, it proved that an entire Saturday morning block could be dedicated to teen-oriented live-action programming. The influence extended beyond TNBC. The Disney Channel adopted the Saved by the Bell blueprint entirely. Lizzie McGuire, That's So Raven, Hannah Montana. These shows are the direct DNA descendants of Saved by the Bell. These shows remove the parents almost entirely, just like Saved by the Bell minimized everyone except Mr. Belding. Then there is the whole Nickelodeon world with Clarissa Explains It All, Drake and Josh, iCarly, it goes on. Dan Schneider's shows in the 2000s were essentially Saved by the Bell for the next generation. Wacky sidekicks, broad comedy, and bright colors. It really is quite the legacy, and all of it from a show that really, if it weren't for Brandon Tartikoff's persistence, wouldn't have existed.